I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago.
I know for many of our listeners or viewers, because this will be on YouTube, some of them, this might be their first year. They might be starting just out in homeschooling. And for many, they may have had, like myself, my husband and I are both products of public education. When I worked as a guidance counselor years ago, I worked in public education. And so either they're starting out as homeschoolers for those first few years, or they might be shifting back from public school into homeschool. And it's quite an adjustment at first to move away from that mindset is about the only word that I can think of to describe it. You also have a background in public education, and you shifted your older two children into homeschooling, shifting from that. So what advice do you have for anyone coming from, and nothing against public education, to each his own, and each family has to decide what works best for them. But homeschool is vastly different, and we don't necessarily have to work within those parameters. What advice do you have from your own experience, professional and personal, to new homeschoolers as they're trying to make that adjustment and make that shift from public school to homeschool?
It is a big shift. It really is. And again, I have hindsight. I would have. I guess I wouldn't change anything because it's our story. As far
Mhm.
as everything, I learned and grew, and that's what we're to do. But I started out so regimented and still in that mindset of, 9 to 9:50 was math, and then, 10 o'clock to 10:50 was science. I mean, we were literally, I was setting timers. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty bad. So
Okay.
yes, I was setting timers. My oldest daughter
Oh,
laughs, and
goodness.
she was the guinea pig, and she'll still say, "Mom, that first year was pretty bad," and I'll say, "Yeah, it was pretty bad." But I had
I
this,
love it.
I had this regimented, we were doing one
Mhm.
subject at a time, and we were finishing. And if you weren't finished, well, you'll just have to finish your work later. And we did that. And I also really taught to the textbook, and I felt like I needed to finish the textbook. It was just so many of those kind of things were important to me. Being in public school, I taught public school, middle school, and high school English, and in public school, having 30 children in a classroom, you're pretty much teaching to the middle of the group. You can't really teach to
Mhm.
the high and the low because you only have 50 minutes or 45 minutes. And so you're teaching to that middle child, and you're hoping that the lower level kids jump on, and you're hoping that the upper level kids don't get tired of it or whatever, or they already know it. So
They're
it's
bored.
hard.
Mhm.
It's hard. So then I came to, our kitchen table where I just had our oldest daughter, and I wish I would have I do wish I would have had more flexibility and more creativity. I grew into that, and and again, it just every year it got better and better. And I learned, I don't have to finish the entire textbook. I don't have to stop math at 8:50. We can go longer.
Mhm.
Guess what? I could even have science only on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or I could just have history. We could just have a big history lesson once or twice a week, or go to the museum, and just so many creative things that came out of those years of homeschooling. And I learned to mix curriculum. I did start out with a Becca. I wanted just a
Mhm.
Becca.
Ooh,
And I
that's
like a
tough.
Becca. Yeah, I know. And I like a Becca, but I didn't need to
Mhm.
use a Becca for every subject. And I
Mhm.
ended up
Mhm.
doing some different things. So I guess the part about being more creative and more of an outside the box thinker, uh, I had to learn that because as a public school teacher, that especially in a high school English setting, it's sort of squelched because you don't have enough time, and now they have the testing where you need to just teach certain things. So, oh, it's
Yes.
terrible. So, you
Mhm.
come from
Mhm.
that, and so I did need to learn the creativity and the flexibility. And so that's what I had to work on. I think coming into it also with too high of expectations, maybe. I had just everything pretty much outlined, yeah, about this is what we're doing, this is what's going to happen this year, instead of just realizing that things happen. And um, I learned through the years that my when my kids would like something, they were so interested in something, we just took a lot longer with that. And then when Mary Ruth, our youngest, came along, we just had a lot of fun. I can remember her in
That's
kindergarten.
awesome.
Yeah, we just pretty much
Hmm.
played. We made up little songs for days of the week and months of the year, and we played, and then added a little bit more first grade and a little bit more second grade. And I think I realized that we didn't have to sit for 8 hours a day for school. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
You and people would ask me, as the kids got older, how many hours a day do you do school? And I would say it varies, but there are
It
days when
is.
we might do
Hmm.
4. We might do 4 or 5. We might do 3. And I'd always get that look like, well, then they're not learning anything. But that they learn so much because there's
Hmm.
uninterrupted time. You're not stopping them for disruptions in a classroom. I mean, it's one-on-one. They can get a lot done. They can get a lot done in a morning.
Oh, absolutely. What I heard there was growth. You had so
Mhm.
much growth, and you had a few growing pains to go with it, but it goes with it.
It
It
does.
goes with it, and it just kind of be okay in the midst of it, of the growth. And sometimes that is so hard for us, especially when you have I have a very similar personality.
No.
So, and I mean, they scare you to death when you work in public education. Boy, do they. And I was only a guidance counselor, so I couldn't imagine actually teaching. So, yeah, they scare you to death. They
I know.
really do, for no reason at all. But I won't go off on that rabbit trail for a minute. But you get to pursue the fun rabbit trails. You really do. And what you're really learning is that you're teaching your kids how to have a love of learning in
Exactly.
general. Because if you teach that and you lay that foundation, the rest is gravy. They'll come along and learn how to learn.
They sure will. And
You
if
didn't, yeah, because,
they sure
no,
will.
please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, not every child's a reader, but if you have a
Mm-mm,
reader, they learn so much when they read. And if you don't have a reader, I encourage you to do a lot of audiobooks and read alouds.
mm-hmm,
Read alouds are so
mm-hmm,
important, and that's another way that you're just together as a family. I've known families through the years that the dad has been has done the read alouds in the evenings, and I think that's really neat. I like that. I like that. My husband's not a read. He is a reader, but just with certain things. He helped me in so many ways, but that just wasn't his thing. I don't think he really that wasn't something he wanted to do, and that's okay because I did it. I
it
love
is.
doing read alouds.
Oh, I do too. It's my favorite. I mean, we are vast readers. My son sort of kind of taught himself to read at 4. He sort of picked up on it, and so
Wow,
we just went with it. So that's how we taught it. Well, I mean, not fully taught, but he started to memorize the books we were reading, and then he started to pick up on he just was a natural reader.
that's wonderful.
But we do read aloud still, and it's kind of funny. My husband is not a reader. If he ever had to read anything for work, I would get an audiobook for the car because I knew that's what he would need if he needed it for management or what have you. But when we do read alouds as a family in the evenings. That's our poetry and tea time did not work. My son's like, I don't really want to do tea time, Mom. I'm like, that's fine. That did not work.
Tried
So
it.
I tried. I'm like, this looks so cool. And then he's like, no, thank you. But I'll take the cookies. I'm like, okay. So instead, we changed. We make it work for us. We do read alouds in the evening. We do that in family board games. That's our big thing. My husband works from home, but that way we reconnect together at the end as a family because Daddy has to have dinner at his desk a lot. So, that's instead of dinner together, that's how we reconnect. But it's kind of funny. We were reading recently through our read alouds for this year, and I was reading the children's version of the illustrated classic, Great Expectations. My husband says to me,
Wow.
I never read that in high school. And of course, I look to him like he has 3 heads. I'm like, what do you mean you never read this in high school? You were deprived. So I'll read anything. And
Oh,
so,
that's
he
great.
sits there. He heard me reading one night and he had to work a little late and ran upstairs. And he's like, oh, okay, you're not reading it. And I'm like, what? He's like, well, I didn't want to miss it.
That is awesome. What a great book. That's great. And what a great story.
I'm like, and you're a fan. Please pull up a chair and let's finish Great Expectations.
That is
And it's a
wonderful.
way to bond as your family. Yes. And now he has read at least or heard the children's version of Great Expectations. But yes, read aloud is another fun way to bond and let go of all
Yes.
those unrealistic expectations that you don't have to meet for public
It is
school.
it is
Make
so
it
true.
your own.
That's right. Make it your own. You're exactly right.